One, and we are live. Greetings, campers. Well, wasn't sure on the title because if I put anything more than updates, it seems to get limited. So, this is a lengthy title. If it gets limited, we're going to have to do it again under a different title. So I was so excited yesterday. I was so pumped when I found this stuff out. This blew me out of the water that I was going to run to the lead sled and crank up Led Zeppelin 3 Celebration Day, where the beginning says her face is cracked from smiling all the fears that she's been hiding, and it seems like pretty soon everybody's gonna know. Well, now. The first link draws and reveals an ancient plan 100 years ago. The Bolsheviks ran an operation called Operation Trust. It was a psychological warfare operation. It is frighteningly similar and identical to what Q did. And there, the Bolsheviks were making it appear that there were people infiltrated in the government that were going to take them down and destroy the communists. Sound familiar? Including high-ranking officials with secret clearance. Now, there's a cool video here that is video number 1. And he goes through the info. I don't know who the guy is. Somebody, of course, trashed him when I forwarded the link. And it's like, dude, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the info. The second link is the page called Bolsheviks and Operation Trust, right? And that's the one he's reading from. The next one is Operation Trust and the Q Plan. That one is a bit of a sketchy website. However, it lays out some very interesting thoughts if you can get through all the ads and crap. And then, of course, link number 4, and they are numbered for you campers, is Wikipedia, for what it's worth, of Operation Trust. Interesting. Very interesting. It ran evidently according to Wikipedia, and these are the links which probably took their source from Wikipedia from 1921 to 26, right in the midst of the Depression here, shortly after the Bolshevik Revolution. Now, who's been screaming about Bolshevik Revolution here for a couple of years? And even Jerry Nadler, that well-known luminary of judicial deference and balance, even made the statement, well before he announced that Antifa is a myth, he made this statement that people are saying that this is Bolsheviks. Curious he should pick that word, isn't it? All right, now, this is very exciting stuff. Now let's get to the serious problem, the serious question. If you recall, I had said the big problem is when Trump walks out, the people who are not Q supporters will still be rather aggravated, angered, dumbfounded, disappointed, disgusted that how could he do such a thing when he had the obligation to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution by not exercising his presidential powers and obtaining a recount and examining the irregularities in the voting issues. He basically allowed, with the information that he says he has, the critical infrastructure of the United States to be compromised. And it doesn't matter if it was China or Russia or Venezuela. It matters against or by all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's an obligation. I suggested at that time, if he doesn't stand up and do it, there's a case that could be argued he's a traitor. Call it high treason, okay? Even though it may not technically violate that statutory definition of treason, which is put in there to make sure we've got lots of wiggle room to litigate and never charge anyone with. Isn't interesting? So that's the perfect thing. Put the statute in to make sure you really can't charge anyone with treason, and then continue the insurgency over decades and decades and decades. A century? Right after that 1897 conference in Basel, Switzerland. Well, now, but here's the important point right now. I had mentioned, and I have the comments off because it's not processing right when I have the comments on. No disrespect or antagonism suggested here. It's just too stupid. I have 5 videos that are up, but it's saying still waiting in my list. It's bizarre, right? And I don't want to delete one by accident, so I don't need more in that list. I'll have to figure that out too. Okay, back to the point. I'd suggested that the Q people will be suffering, and so will the regular patriots who are not Q supporters and believers, will be also suffering a little cognitive dissonance. They will be in shock, right? There will be anger, then there will be mourning, then there will be acceptance. Now, the question, and the big question is first, this information of the Bolsheviks' Operation Trust and the similarity to the Q plan must circulate the internet big. This should become the latest viral message out there. I don't know how to do it. I've shared this with other people, and hopefully they'll share it too. You could share this video. But here's the real powerful thought. If you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are Q followers, how do we harness their energy and keep them engaged? Do we take their anger? How do they feel if they were betrayed, if they were lied to, and now they realize this is an operation by our own government? My belief, it's our friends at the agency. Why? Because Biden signed how many executive orders on day one? 17. That's a dog whistle. People who are unaware of the Q thing have no idea what 17 means, but the Q people know. So that's a poke in the eye. Now, Biden didn't do it. His handlers did it. Or his handlers were told how to do it. And they handed him 17 orders and said, sign it. And even if he didn't, even if it was 15 or 16, mainstream media is reporting it's 17. So it's the same point. It's a dog whistle so the Q fans hear it and know they've been had. Now, some of them are still in denial. That's before you reach mourning and anger and acceptance. And they think there's a symbol here that Q is continuing. Well, I would suggest to snap out of it, take that anger and direct it at these morons in government, both elected officials and in all branches, state, local, and federal, because they need to know we're paying attention. They are tightening the noose. They are starting to want to call people domestic terrorists. They're going to presumably pass the Domestic Terrorist Act, which is Patriot Act 2.0, and that becomes a terrifying authoritarian grab and a restriction on we the people, on all people, whether it's a lefty or a righty, and their rights. So the question is, now is not the time to gloat and hammer the Q people and say, hey, you're an idiot. No, you say, well, what do you want to do about it? You were lied to. This is a very complicated, complex, intricate, professional operation. Many, many, many people were pulled into it. That's what its purpose was. It was well funded. The question I had while thinking about how I'm going to explain this to you is whether or not Smith-Munt modernization qualifies as propaganda for the benefit of the country and thus taxpayer money paid for it? Or did the agency pay for it? Or is this all supposedly legal? There's a little twist for you campers. But you need to take a look at this. This thing is called Operation Trust. You can Google it. You can run it through any search engine you want. You check it out and see how many articles and things are written about it. Fascinating. Now, there's some noise out there. I think Bill Still did a piece. I did speak with Harry last night. He said stories are out saying this was an FBI operation. This is disinformation. The Russians didn't do this moron. The Russians did it originally as the Bolsheviks to create a psyop against the people who would have revolted, to pacify them. I think that's the same word I use, pacify them, right? Eat the popcorn, enjoy the show, don't do anything. But those people would have been and will again be outraged at being lied to and manipulated, and secondly, for the abuse and the non-representation of them by representatives. So now is a good time that everybody knows all of this great research they did. They can now hold them accountable to stay engaged, stay active, and hammer the crap out of them. Calls, emails, texts, tweets, anything you like. That's the way we got to do this. These people have to be now welcomed into the patriot movement and not following a magical make-believe superhero that is not going to show up, which some of us decided that a while ago. Because if he doesn't, the downside is too extreme. And what does that say about Trump? So he's going to do a TV studio, a radio program. What's he going to do? A new political party? Is he not potentially getting people to raise their hands to now isolate those, which is what they did in Operation Trust, to get those to come forward who are the real rebellious ones, and then pick them up and incarcerate them or kill them? Liquidate them. This is getting real serious, and y'all better pay attention, right? So I need you to think, and I'd like your comments on the best way to engage the Q people and harness that anger and say, hey, now's the time to hammer them. If you notice, I'm going to jump out of line here. Now we'll get to it, but YouTube, and I think it's link number 8, is deleting portions, chunks, 16,000, 14,000, thousands of dislikes, thumbs downs on Biden's White House YouTube channel. And they're calling it spam. This is fascinating. I just watched a little thing. One of our campers put a link in and said Diamond did it. He addressed it. But this is from the Epoch Times, so it is well known. There are like a 6-to-1 ratio of dislikes to likes. So where are all of Biden's supporters? Mr. Most Popular President of all time. I guess those dislikes go the same place in the same manner with a flip of a switch, the way some of those votes allegedly switched now. Didn't they? Curious how that works. So at what point do the people, the Q people, the patriots, the citizens, the people who are looking and saying, wait a minute, where in the hell is YouTube now modifying? Not only are they censoring, excuse me, now they're absolutely lying, adulterating, fabricating the social interaction. Amazing. Don't they have to hear it from us? Do they have to hear it from our reps? Maybe the National Guard was up there in such force because these clowns were up there, and they were afraid that if the people actually found out what they did and reacted, it would be a big problem. You-hoo. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe it was just a massive showing of force as they disregard them right after. Let me continue with the links. Interesting stuff. Number 5 is the Strong Cities program, which is the international UN group to participate. Okay, this is a one-page letter, and I didn't even read the damn thing. I scrolled down to see what American mayor idiot signed it. Sure enough, there's one subjecting himself to jurisdiction of international operation that obviously has not sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution. Biden wants to put us back in the WHO. Should he be asked, hey, did they uphold the Constitution? How can you subject yourself and make yourself subservient to their orders if they have not sworn to uphold the Constitution? Doesn't that violate your oath, Biden? How about we start telling people this? Because if they don't hear it, it's not going to become a buzz, is it? Strong Cities. It's a one-page PDF. I'll print it and look at it because I got so revved up I was going to play the Zeppelin tune, and I didn't because I got more information on other things pertaining to the vaccine. Now, luciferon. All right. Now, we don't have that here, but there's some amazing stuff. And I have to do a shout out to Miss Shannon. Amazing research, and thank you. So we had a long chat that went a lot longer than I wanted. And while we were talking, and I got a lot of info, and she forwarded to me patent applications and things like that, which we will be sharing. They can be shared with other people who are pursuing these vaccination issues now. So now we have two layers. We have David Martin and his brilliant analysis, which I put in as extra links yesterday, I think, or the day before. But they have to be looked at and shared, and not just sent to your friends and believers. They could be sent to the non-believers, but what David is saying, we, the viewers, need to carry the ball. He created it. He did the work. He did the research. Now, it's up to us if we give a shit about our health freedom, independence, and truth in science and real life, that we need to bring that forward to people who have authority to do something about it. Law enforcement, governors, health department officials, congressional people, local reps. The documents, make them watch it, print out the Fauci document after it. Because the simplest argument is they could dismiss it, but you now can say, I told you. You are aware of this, and you are choosing to do nothing. What about your oath to uphold the Constitution? You will be held accountable. Senator, congressman, governor, health department moron. And in fact, if it is a health department moron who is like contrarian to that position that David Martin lays out, you could ask him if he took an oath or she took an oath to uphold the Constitution. You see? Because these people need to be challenged, and that's the only way we're going to win. And some smartass yesterday put it, the Constitution is dead. I said, listen, pal, it's been injured. It's been damaged. There's no doubt about it. But you better not be hoping it's dead, because if you're American, your attitude is what? Go along to get along? Just get used to the new game? Really? So you're going to go along and get along until they get tired of you, and then you'll go along to a COVID camp. Yeah. So if it's dead, it's not dead. It's dead when you get knuckleheads like that want to make that argument and submit to an alternative. What's Pechenik have to say? I don't know about you, but I took an oath to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution. And I took it seriously and still hold that oath. Okay? Now, strong cities, number 5. Number 6. The beauty of the Democrats of devaluing and discarding the National Guard after their service. So evidently these guys are forced to sleep in parking garages. 5,000 troops in a parking garage with one bathroom with 2 stalls. So I don't know, but then we found some other crap. Schumer found out about it. Evidently the governor of Texas called his troops back. And he said, I gotta find that. That's also in Epoch Times. It's interesting. He might be suing Biden. Oh, not for the National Guard. He might be suing Biden for preventing Texas from, I want to say evicting, we'll say deporting the illegal immigrants. It's an interesting thing, and I think he should. And we're waiting for pushback. Now, in the concept of lawsuits, right? You remember Biden did these 17 things. Okay. I'm not even going over them yet. That'll be a whole nother thing to go look at them. But the one that jumped out was the pipeline where he revokes the permit. So I was discussing this with my mom, and I said, look, how come when Trump did an executive order, you had federal judges and the left-wingers out there in court that day with an actual injunction the next day or 2 days later in federal court stopping a federal policy from being implemented? Why? Because they're well-funded, they're well-organized, and the agenda that they have means preventing Trump from limiting that. Open Borders Society, or is it the Open Society Border? So that's what it's all about, and it's very well-funded, distributed, and networked. So here's the thing. When these idiot orders come out that support that agenda, who's going to fight against it, right? So my thought was the only one that jumped out at me is the XL pipeline. Why? because you have millions of dollars, many years operating, pursuing this, invested in it, and operating on in good faith on a contract. And this clown revokes the permit. That's like you have a building permit to build a skyscraper and you're halfway done, and then somebody says the permit's revoked because we're changing the policy. There's a thing called detrimental reliance. And I'm thinking that's the whole Q argument, detrimental reliance. Hang on a second. My last cigarette fell on the floor. Ugh. So this whole thing, I mean, you can't just breach a contract like that. That's a slam dunk. Plus, you now have the commercialized version of the Constitution. So we will see the way Bill Barr was looking at and telling his U.S. attorneys to look for unconstitutional actions. Keep an eye out for unconstitutional actions. Keep a lookout. Well, evidently they didn't find any, but he did do a bit of a dissertation about commercial speech. Curious, commercial speech. Does that relate to Antifa? I kind of missed that, but the point is the commercial speech and the business, it's all about a corporatocracy, which means that permit executive order, I believe, will get shot down. I haven't even read it. I'm just saying on the general scheme of things, we'll see. All right, so what do we got? We've got 17 executive orders. We now have the Antifa website pointing at the White House website. Has anybody mentioned that to anybody in the media? That might be worth doing, don't you think? Fun for Tuck Tuck. Tucky, have you seen this? Hang on a second. You've got all these orders modifying the immigration policy, and but wait, there's more. Let's see if there's pushback immediately. I'm hearing some noise about it, but nothing yet. Okay, so we'll come back to that. But now we still have the vaccine thing. Oh, wait a minute. I have to find that one and show it to you. That's amazing. The change in the attitude on the PCR tests have suddenly come like, oh, whoa, well, these are questionable. The number of cases and deaths have suddenly dropped. The infectivity rate of this COVID nonsense is suddenly down. Suddenly everything is toning down. The media hyperbole is toning down. The propaganda is toning down. The power of an inauguration, and the stock market went wild. I don't know what to make out of that. Do you? Tell us. All right, so we got the National Guard. Basically gets discarded like a good narcissistic abuse victim. A giscard, tossed aside like an object that was used because they don't really want troops there because that might interfere with their little Bolshevik minions. Number 7, Biden wants to keep Christopher Wray at the FBI. This is the moron who couldn't find Antifa as an organization. Isn't that interesting? So Biden likes that. And Christopher Wray is out there talking about how he wants to look at domestic terrorism. So this guy is clearly on board with the agenda, which then begs the question, why didn't Trump fire him? Why did Trump hire him? I still say Trump is part of this game. And it's the fake wrestling thing. And the only thing is it's a lose-lose situation. If he loses, the other guys, they're running a drill, right? If they're going to run down the field with the ball, they're going to run as far as they can until somebody stops them. Nobody stops them, they run into for a touchdown. So the fake opposition is there, and if the fake opposition stops them, okay, great, and then they continue. So it's one is worse than the other. But the documents were never released. The 5G is scheduled online and rolling. The lockdown is great because they get to go insert that. The lockdown was caused by Trump, but he's going to blame Fauci. How come he didn't look, right? He's got Azar up there at HHS. They've done a miraculous job of manipulating the laws and the emergency use things. Again, David Martin's thing is brilliant because this is not a vaccine. It is a technology. By definition, a vaccine creates immunity through subsequent exposure to the pathogen. This does not. The CDC says so. They admit on both of Pfizer and Moderna that that was not part of their clinical trials. That's not what they were looking to do. So they can't represent that this is a vaccine. That's false. That is a blatant lie that violates state statutes. And does that remove their immunity? That's the question, isn't it? And it's clearly experimental. So let me kind of loop this back into this, what's the word? Luciferon. I think of interferon, but it's luciferon. This is the glowing component. And because it's an mRNA element, okay, I have a sneeze coming. Excuse me, wow. What it does is replicate. So this mRNA really is the quintessential definition of a virus that takes over a cell and has the cell reproduce the virus. The mRNA comes out and is going to reproduce this luciferon, right? Like interferon, luciferon. So technically, upon proper scoping of either infrared or ultraviolet, as I'm told, I haven't read the patent apps, you should be able to see this coursing through your bloodstream. Additionally, it is transferable through people. It is a sexually transmitted luminescence. Isn't that interesting? Which is an mRNA, which means you can now still be injected with this vaccine or this mRNA element technology. So, how many people do they actually have to inject with this before it becomes self-replicating? Okay, interesting. And because it modifies the DNA, it'll move down through generational transfer, right? Children. Very concerning, but they've created the virus. So that is the virus, okay? Not the luciferon, but the whole mRNA vaccine that they're calling a vaccine is really the virus. This is self-replicating. And then, of course, you have the problem with the antibody, what are we calling it, the storm, which is what happened in the animal trials in the 60s. Great response, but when the animals were exposed to the natural virus, the wild, they reacted so severely that they died. And the reason is that this mRNA thing makes your cells appear to be dangerous. So, this is very colloquial English. So what happens is your immune system begins attacking your own cells because this shit is in there. So it's a self-destruct mechanism. Clever, isn't it? Problematic. So let's see when the next round of a coronavirus comes through and how many people who have been purportedly vaccinated drop dead. So we should have a real vicious flu season this year, in the spring. Yeah, so this shit needs to be stopped, and they need to be held accountable. And then, of course, David Martin's second piece that I pointed out, which was this Monday. What was that, the 18th? Let me look. No. Yeah, it was. It was the 18th, right? Can't tell. It's too small. Got to get a bigger calendar. Oh, I'm looking at February. Yes, it was the 18th. Okay, good. So that's the one that has the Fauci dossier, which is about 220 to 250 pages of a very systematic breakdown of the illegalities of Fauci's activities and his National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases. All kinds of conflicts of interest, all kinds of problems. Very impressive. That could also be handed to government officials, lawyers, prosecutors, representatives, executive branch, governors. Now it's time. It's showtime, campers, because the people that now are realizing that they've been lied to and manipulated to lay down best stand up And they should be angry, and they have every right to be angry, not at you, not at me, at the people that deceived them. You like being lied to, and when you find out you're lied to, what's the reaction? Oh, well? Well, if you're an oh, well, then great. Oh, well. That's not going to help you or anybody else. But don't worry, somebody else will do it. It's easy to take that position. Just keep clicking around. Stop clicking around. Look at my picture here in the backyard. I got this battery charger. Wait a minute. I was clicking around to get here, not to hear your crap. I was clicking around to see the content, not to be told by you to stop clicking around. I can't click away from your crap because your ad was inserted right in front of my face, right? So I have to wait 5 seconds before I can hit skip it. So, I have very, very low regard for the people that are, oh, well, okay? It's time to do it. And if you don't want to speak up and step up, then forever hold your peace and don't bitch and moan. All right, and let me get back here and we'll close it momentarily, campers. Check these links, though. Unbelievable. The first one is a video, and then the other three are little articles that have clips and highlighted sections out of the book that was written on this Bolshevik Operation Trust, right? So we've got Biden wants to keep Wray in the FBI. That article speaks about Wray wanting to really make domestic terrorism the #1 issue. Oh, good. Not good. And what about aiding and abetting terrorists? Right? So once again, they're trying to reverse reality. So they want to take over, and anybody who objects is a terrorist. That's a fascinating thought, isn't it? And then the last link I had mentioned earlier is where YouTube is deleting portions, big chunks of dislikes from the Biden videos. The most popular president of all time. And Trump did nothing. All right? You decide. All right, campers, thanks for tuning in. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Let's see. Looks like 187 people there at the moment. Leave a comment and subscribe. I thank the patrons. I thank the people sending the PayPal contributions. I've responded, and I am grateful and appreciative. And I ask the other campers to continue supporting the channel so we don't have to try to reach out and have that idiot jump in your face and say, stop clicking around. What a voice on him. All right. I'll be back at you later. The sun is shining here in Florida. Hope all is well. And best regards to everyone. God bless. Godspeed. We'll be back at you later. Check these links. Like, share, subscribe. And wow. Got more info for you later. Thanks. Bye for now.